Okay. Thanks. So yeah, we'll kind of keep moving through the agenda here. The next item, and I'm glad we've got some Fish and Wildlife representation here, was for the Sally Laughlin Award presentation. So we will again do this at Dead Creek Days, which is, I have that right, October 1st, correct? And the presentation is slated for noon. So anyone who can make it down there, please feel free. Great to have some representation from the Endangered Species Committee to champion our conservation heroes. So Steve Perrin is this year's award winner, and he will be there. So we have Steve lined up, and as you know, Steve has been just fantastic in terms of what he's meant for Vermont's Threatened and Endangered Species Committee. So hopefully some of you folks can get down there. It'd be great to have people there congratulating Steve.
And he's aware that he won the award, right?
No, he's not aware.
He's not aware.
But I did.
Good thing I didn't say anything.
Well, I did. The email that I sent him was probably indicative of what's coming, because he's been there for all of these. So it was sort of like, hey, would you happen to be at Dead Creek Days at noon on October 1st?
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure he knows. But
I did say, see you in a couple weeks.
Okay.
And I thought maybe I shouldn't.
No, that's okay. Yeah, don't worry about it. I mean, I doubt that it's a surprise, but I did not come right out and tell him especially when he said he was going to be there. I figured then maybe we can have it a surprise, but yeah, and I guess
Do his hair.
Wear something nice.
Wear
you know.
something.
Thanks.
I would say cleaner bit of panel.
All right. In the past, I know Jim has talked about this as an opportunity for some more publicity for the department, and so just kind of putting that out there, Mark. I don't know if there's
So I actually just sent an email to our outreach team yesterday.
Okay.
I haven't come back yet to say what do you want to do with this?
Yeah.
What,
Mm-hmm.
what can we do with it?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
TV.
Well, yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think Steve is, he's an amazing story. So with, specifically with all the turtle work, but even generally with just all the work he's done here.
And we dedicated our newsletter last year to him and highlighted his work.
Great. Yeah.
His newsletter.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. So anyway, hopefully some of you can make it down there. Good bird. Probably good herping too. Right, Jim? No comment. All right.
Oh, he has a hand.
Go ahead, Jim.
Well, does the press actually get invited? Is there something that goes out to press people? I heard what Roz said about the internal, Fish and Wildlife outreach people, but are press people invited? Does something go to the press in advance so that they can be there?
Well, a press release went out about the event just a few days ago. It didn't go out about this award, which might be tricky given we're being undercover about it a little bit this time. But that's why I emailed outreach yesterday to see if they wanted to do something specifically about the award now that we already announced the whole day's events.
I think you could talk about the award and past winners without necessarily saying Steve.
Yeah.
And where the award came from, maybe a little bit about the history and that the winner is going to be announced. Fill in the blanks a little bit more than have been in the past.
Yeah, I guess I was just kind of thinking about, you know, sort of spilling the beans versus publicity. I mean, it just seems like if you had, you know, I don't know, you know, WCAX or somebody wanted to come down there and do a story, I would be fine with ruining the surprise for that. So, yeah.
But my other thought was, we could just do something reporting it.
Yes, right,
But
exactly.
I think the idea is to kind of generate more interest in going. Sounds like, so.
Well, I think I think Jim's thought is really just publicity for the department and, endangered species work, conservation work. So, yeah.
We got some staff bodies now, so
Yeah.
we haven't for a couple of years, so.
Yeah.
That's why Roz is gonna head kind of, the agency also has a communication coordinator too, who's new. So
Okay, yeah.
you sent it to her as well, Roz?
I started with Josh and then,
Okay.
so he can decide
Is
who's taking it up.
the secretary presenting the award? Okay,
Okay,
Is that what's supposed to?
well, it's her
Right,
award,
it's her
board,
award.
it's her award.
Yeah.
Committee.
all right. I will
don't
reach
know.
out again to
I
Sarah.
mean, they know the event is.
Yeah.
It's not a new
Yeah.
rodeo.
Yeah.
But she'll need talking points,
Mhm.
among other things.
Yeah.
Get her prepared.
If she goes, I mean, I think in the past, if she hasn't, commissioners have gone, or I don't know if you presented, Alan, when you've been chair recently,
Yeah.
I don't know the history.
I know she's done at least a couple.
Yeah,
I think, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She definitely did Warren 2 years ago. I can't remember
Mhm.
it last year or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
The commissioner did last year's.
What's that?
The commissioners did last year.
Okay, yeah, Commissioner. All right.
Sorry, I have laryngitis.
All right. So with a few minutes before lunch, I'd say, why don't we see if we can maybe talk through one of these two items. So both of these were some issues that Jim brought up at the last meeting, and we did not really resolve them. And so the first one, I guess we'll just start there, protection for non-game, non-avian species. So the issue is that for many species outside of migratory birds, which are protected through the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, we have a lot of species that are not necessarily given any sort of protection, despite the fact that they're not listed and they're not really protected. And I think, I feel like last time I think there was some conversation about warden involvement. But I don't know, Jim, I'll pass it over to you. I'll pull up the minutes from the last meeting as well.
Sure. We made the point, or the HRPSAG made the point that, say with a species like spiny softshell, if we get to the point where we delist that species, although you would need a permit to be collecting or working with it, if you have a valid hunter's license, you could legally shoot them as long as they're not currently listed. And so that's really where we came from, is that there's no kind of background protection for, like there is particularly for birds, for some of these species that we're concerned about. Now, we drafted some language just as kind of examples. We weren't pushing that specific language, but somehow providing a level of protection for, in the way we wrote it, it was really for all non-game herps, but it could be sliced in different ways, like S1, S2, S3 species. It could be non-game vertebrates. It could be species that were previously listed, and it's just another level of protection once they have been downgraded from threatened to the next level down. But to go directly from listed to huntable did not seem like an appropriate level of protection, particularly for long-lived species that might not mate, breed until they're 14, 15 years old, don't have the reproductive capacity of some of the inverts, some of the small mammals. And so we were really trying to just raise the issue of, could we get the Endangered Species Committee to pass along a statement of recommendation that we explore better ways to protect non-game species that are at some risk, even if they're not listed.
Yeah, so I guess maybe I'll just ask Mark or Roz, was there any additional conversation about this? Did this go any further after the last meeting?
Not since the last meeting. There's
Okay.
been law enforcement, and Catherine had talked about it. And so I think it could be, I don't see anything wrong with recommending that, in this case, the department look into this further. And
I spoke with the colonel about it, but now we have a new
well,
colonel.
that's the point. Exactly.
So,
So it's,
now we have to.
yeah, the
start over.
colonel before, I mean, I had a meeting before, and he, a little bit reluctant to, at that time, to move forward because he didn't really know what we had to do and what it meant, enforcement standpoint. But we have a Justin Stedman is in transition period right now to be the new director of law warden services, as they're called.
I think my question would be, does it make sense for, does it make sense for the Endangered Species Committee to essentially, sort of push something? So that was, I think, Jim's recommendation was, what about a, letter of support for something like this coming from the Endangered Species Committee versus having the, sort of internal conversations first? Does it
My
make,
advice would be to have the internal conversations
Uh-huh.
first. But we have a new commissioner,
Mhm.
warden services, we have a new species diversity permit. It's all
Mhm.
the brunt of the work to go through is, it's not clear to me, can we do this through rulemaking with the Fish and Wildlife Board or legislature?
Mhm.
Legislature, then that could be a whole,
Yeah.
a lot of reluctancy to go that way.
Uh-huh.
Due to the current bills that are coming out of legislature that deal with our work.
Mhm. Okay. Well, what if,
Do you have a question? Yeah.
Well, I was just looking back at my notes, when we were talking about the RAWA
Yeah,
recovery, I had my notes. Cover
right.
that. It includes preventing listing.
Mhm.
So.
Yep.
So even though they're now delisted, it would fall under that cat, and I know that's, impending on funding, but like, have you guys, since I wrote it down, I feel like you're thinking about it
It
already.
would
a
be
little
one of
bit.
our, you hit the key answer to our thinking. So when RAWA gets passed, we're gonna have more capacity to deal with these topics with this.
Okay, but then
To
the
put staff
strategy
into it, the
isn't,
strategy.
it's not, so the strategy isn't there, but you would build capacity to build a strategy.
Exactly,
for
exactly, the time.
Yeah,
Right now, the warden force has been
Yeah.
down, they've been down.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
Warden force
when
is
COVID
down.
hit and then just due to the nature. And so they've been shortchanged quite a bit, a lot. So there's just bodies. It's
So
just
it's like
warm
wardens
bodies to work on this.
And these are just really, like, I just don't know, like, I'm just asking
You're right,
questions
you made a
to
good
learn.
point.
Yeah.
But like wardens have some responsibility with respect to ensuring that species don't get taken that have been delisted?
Well-
or-
Enforcement fees.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
No, they're the
Yeah.
ones.
Oh, they're the ones.
So-
Okay,
so
they're the
what-
boots on the ground.
Yeah, so what Jim is talking about is enacting legislation that would allow them to have some authority.
Okay.
And, you know, because then it would become illegal to do things that are currently, it's not illegal to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these aren't species that were listed and were delisted. These are species that, any species that aren't with any status,
Yeah.
right? That's what this refers to.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking like, I mean, I feel like, yeah, they're different. One was delisted and the other one's species that
Yeah.
never had any status, but they also they overlap a little bit as well to some extent in that you don't want them to disappear at all.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I just wanted to make sure you,
Yeah. No, but I was just,
they're not recovered species.
yeah. But there's currently no protection for recovered species either, is what, or this.
Well, usually with recovered species, we have like post-recovery plans. And So
Okay.
we're, you know, we don't just forget about them. We're like
Okay.
peregrine falcon and
Sorry.
loons. And so we're, you know,
I'm dragging everybody into the weeds.
if we,
Well,
no, that's
you know,
okay. This is all good.
Yeah.
You know, I suppose if we successfully recovered enough species, that would become really difficult to keep doing with everybody, but we're not there. That would be a good problem to have.
Yeah. In general, we haven't recovered a lot of the, I guess you might call non-charismatic species that this would really apply to.
Mhm.
So we've recovered loons and peregrine falcons and ospreys and if we were to, let's say, recover, you know, the rusty blackbird, which is a, you know, migratory songbird, it would actually still have legal protection
Mm.
through the Migratory Bird Treaty Act
Okay.
after we delisted it.
Okay.
So many of these others, you know, essentially kind of fall through the cracks
Yep.
after we've removed protection from the
Yep.
Vermont Endangered Species Act.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For legal enforcement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, how about, why don't I'll copy you on this email, Jim, but let me just put this directly in Catherine's inbox. I mean, I think she's out this week or
She is
something.
back
Yeah,
on Monday.
but I'll send it out next week and I'll copy
Sure. Yep.
you and Roz and say, you know, this has been a, you know, sort of an ongoing conversation at the Endangered Species Committee meeting. And it would be great to at least get sort of your first take on what does this look like, you know,
Yeah.
legally, regulatorily, legislatively, et cetera. Where would we need to go to move this forward?
They're not starting from ground zero, so
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, yeah.
Hopefully sooner the better. I think the agency's already been working on their legislative packet.
Okay.
This topic hasn't come up.
Yeah, okay.
I agree that we need to be talking with her and get her input right off. I think that would be a useful step. What is it specifically, Alan, that you were going to forward to her? Our letter or the minutes? Or...
Yeah, I would forward your letter and
Okay.
just kind of a summary of the concerns. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds fine with me. We really want to just raise this issue and see what can be done. And then we're certainly willing to work with Fish and Wildlife staff, whoever. Let's say if some committee has to be formed to iron out details, we would be happy to be part of that later on. As long as we just want to raise this concern and hopefully move in that direction.
Good.
Jim, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do we have any sense of the severity of the impacts without this protection? Are there any data?
We don't have a lot of data that show that there's a lot of spiny softshell shooting going on. There's certainly a collection of wood turtles, which is a non-listed species, and it has has a price on its head. So there's a big illegal market, but that's collection. Those guys aren't going to shoot them.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of shooting, I have a number of shells here in my collection that are turtles that were shot, and I think they were just target practice, or maybe pickerel hunting. I'm not exactly sure why they got shot, but you could tell they were shot. And then the other group that I worry about some, and it's really not so much hunting, but it's snakes, like a rat snake, which is currently listed as threatened, but were it delisted, snakes don't have the best PR. And there are people who will just kill snakes on sight. And even though that's not hunting, I suppose somebody could argue that maybe it was, and it would be clearer if we had some protections in place for some of these other species.
Would it need to be an all or nothing type of legislation? Would it, you talk about wood turtles, I see them as different from green frogs in terms of the need, but then to try to start sketching out, well, these species, but we won't worry about those species, that you can't legislate that.
Yeah.
I'm just curious about whether there's middle ground options to put
you could
forward.
if you use other handles like S1, S2, S3 species,
Yeah.
or SGCN. If you use that as your handle, like high, medium priority SGCN species.
Yep.
I think there's different angles that you could come from. I understand your question.
I'll just throw in, I think, better a taxonomic subset rather than something that someone at the business end of a gun or a collection would know without having to consult a iNaturalist or something. Is going to be more effective than saying, S1, S3, okay.
Well, I think,
shoot.
I mean, that would be for the determination, but then the public facing outreach piece would have the species,
But I think probably easier to just say, like, can't do this to turtles.
Yeah, you could.
Oh, you're saying be all or nothing about it.
Yeah.
You could go in that direction.
That's who's going to know. It's the only people are going to know in the field.
Yeah, and then implementation would take care of like what's priority. Yeah.
If you were to go in the taxonomic direction, it would be the longer lived species. The turtles would be the lowest hanging fruit, reptiles, and then unfortunately for them, there are some really long lived salamanders, like the Ambystoma, spotted salamanders, that kind of stuff. Not that I have ever seen anybody out there shooting spotted salamanders, but they are a long-lived species.
Have there been any attempts, sorry, I'm just talking now, without raising my hand. Have there been any attempts in just a public outreach strategy without legislation because I just think like animals should just not be killed, like the matter of course, unless you're actually hunting them for the purposes of consuming them or something, but
you know which building you're in.
I guess, yeah. I mean, yeah, but still, I'm just gonna say it. That's all right. But like just the public outreach piece, and I see your head shaking up and down, so it sounds like you've done, like that's been done, and it needs to. We want more effective means of protecting these types of species.
Yeah, and and our focus tends to be on the rare, threatened, endangered species. So we do a lot on timber rattlesnakes because talk about like getting people's fears up. But it's, we use those species as like, no, these are the value, this is the value of this species and this is the value of snakes. But we could always do more, of course. There's always
like generally,
a more general outreach around.
Look,
Why not
Don't
to
take.
Yeah.
throw turtles in the terrarium for your child, you know?
Yeah, just being a responsible human.
Yeah.
Amongst nature. But that's maybe not it.
No, there's definitely a valuable stuff that needs to happen as well. I
Yeah,
agree.
no, I know, sorry, I just keep.
No, I agree.
I don't know if this is helpful because this is a plant perspective and I'm not advocating that you necessarily copy New York, but it might be helpful to look at New York State has a exploitably vulnerable category in their species protection in addition to threatened and endangered, which is about species that aren't rare or endangered, but that could be vulnerable to exploitation, like trilliums and species like that. So just something that might be worth looking at and considering this.
Plants, which is a little tricky. The landowner has legal laws there too.
And our,
Land.
oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Our herpetologist, Luke Groff, he's always working with wardens on that end of things, of like illegal trafficking of species, and that's ongoing. And we even have a warden now who's dedicated to that sort of work.
Many
Okay.
times, if I'm working on a project, say that's going through an Act 250 process or a Section 248 process, and a uncommon or rare species is identified that's not otherwise protected, there is a certain level of impact that is considered, and after agency consultation and working on avoidance and minimization measures and mitigation where it's called for, that a certain amount of impact to that population is approved for a project. And so in listening to this conversation, it's interesting to think about how, if in the future legislation says you can't do XYZ to turtles, period, like what the ricochet effects in processes like Act 250 or Section 248 would look like, where so much precedent has been set to where projects are able to impact, some portion of that identified population, as long as other conditions in their permit are met. Just a thought from that perspective.
Good point.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that the educational aspect of protecting bats, especially bats dwelling in houses, certainly has been effective in protecting both listed and non-listed species. So I think that's a place where education and outreach has really been successful.
Yeah.
Well, I think education will certainly continue. And we try to do, the Reptile Amphibian Atlas tries to do a lot of education, and Fish and Wildlife helps us with outreach. But I think this is kind of in addition to the education, some level of protection. I was kind of impressed when the warden, who was at our last meeting, frankly said, well, we're actually a little embarrassed that as long as you have a hunting license, you can shoot almost any non-game species. And so I was appreciative of that level of support and concern.
Bill, were you going to say something, Bill?
No, I'm sorry, my hand's still up.
Okay, no, all right. Okay, well, I will, I'll follow up with Catherine and see if we can at least get a little bit more clarity in terms of how we might move this forward. and try to push on this a little bit so it doesn't just become a standing issue of the Endangered Species Committee. So, okay, I guess question: do people want to take a lunch break? Do people want to just work and eat and move through the agenda? How do people want to move forward here? We're a little after noon.
I'd be happy to work through it.
Folks in the room?
Yeah,
Sure.
that sounds good to
Okay.
me.
All right.
I just need a quick break, so if I miss anything, I'll
Okay.
get it done.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe at least a break to grab something to eat.
Okay, yeah, why don't we do that? Let's go ahead and just take 5 and folks can grab their lunch and make their lunch or whatever works, and then reconvene in, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes or something like that.